Okay, I know you've been waiting for me to do the really big reveal, like the Ten Commandments, or a copy of the Bible signed by Jesus, or even the Necronomicon that belonged to Cthulhu. I know you're waiting. You're going to have to keep waiting. But I do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 really cool books, all with a cool backstory. Watch this. So in 1992, this guy was in prison and he decides to publish a book. Have you ever heard of somebody publishing a book while they're in prison? Well, this guy, and I happen to have a wanted poster, Pablo Escobar. Check that out. That's a wanted poster. I actually picked this up in Medellin. Well, he decides to publish a book. In all of the national newspapers there, they're publishing these caricatures of Pablo Escobar. He says, I want to publish those into a book. And in 1992, he publishes that book. And most of the copies were destroyed. There's almost no copies. But here is a book published by Pablo Escobar in caricatures. And you look at it, and it is just filled with all of these caricatures. Now, if that's not cool enough, how about the fact that Pablo Escobar signed this copy? You're never going to see that again. A signed copy, Pablo Escobar, and several of his lieutenants also, right here, signed the book in back. That's just one of the most bizarre things. Weeks later, he escapes from his kind of palace prison, and within 1 year, he is killed in a gun battle. But a year before, he published this book. This is just like one out of a billion books. A book published by and signed by one of the most famous drug lords in the history of the world, Pablo Escobar. One of the most famous and influential books ever published in American history was the Federalist Papers. Who was it written by? Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay. Well, where do you think they got their information? I can tell you because here is a book called The Laws of New York that belonged to none other than Alexander Hamilton. It has his name up the top. What do you think he used as a reference, as a source to write 51 articles for the Federalist Papers? Here is his very book from his own library, and that makes this book, which, it takes a regular law book that's okay, kind of interesting, but the fact that it belonged to one of the founding fathers, Alexander Hamilton, that's just crazy. Okay, this next book is just cool. What is it? It's a copy of Grey's Anatomy. Everybody's heard of that. There's the TV series that took its name from this very book, which first came out back in I believe, 1859. It revolutionized the way medical students were taught. But this copy is special because it was gifted by the most famous nurse ever in the history of the world, Florence Nightingale. Who did she gift it to? Her most talented nurse, according to her own words, to a Miss Delaney. This is a copy of the most famous anatomy book ever printed, signed and gifted by the most famous nurse. That is an absolute treasure. I like spooky books. This is one of the best ever. It's in this protective case. So a little background. If you go back to the 1600s, kind of that time of enlightenment when they're trying to combine science with superstition and other things, they published a book. When I say published, not published, or they compiled teachings from anonymous sources into a book called The Lesser Key of Solomon. 6 copies were made. The British Library has 5 of them. This is the only one in private hands. I mean, it just looks cool. Now, what makes this book spooky? This book tells you how to summon 72 different demons. And when you open it, it looks like just an incredible book. I mean, any page you open it up to is just stunning. This book has gone on to influence dozens of other books written on the subject, but this is the only handwritten copy of the Lesser Key of Solomon in private hands. And it's a brand new acquisition, and I'm going to show you probably my favorite page coming up right here. Right here. How cool is that? Absolutely deserves to be in this group of unique books because of its backstory. And this one happened to be handwritten and, again, the only one in private hands. This is a really cool book. It is one of the oldest books ever translated into English or published in English on magic. It's by Jean-Baptiste Porta. It's translated from the Italian. Natural magic. But what makes this book cool? It belonged to the most famous magician in the world, Harry Houdini, with his annotations. This is just crazy. He signed it 3 times, including at the bottom of the title page in purple ink. That is H. Houdini, Harry Houdini, right there. This book came out in 1658, and I'll read you one little note made by Houdini. He was very upset with one of the spells in here. Page 321, he writes, "A most damnable and cruel way of roasting a goose alive." So, H.H., Harry Houdini. And then he goes on to make other annotations, but how cool is that? Now, this book is cool on its own, natural magic. But to have Harry Houdini's copy takes it to the next level. This next book is absolutely stunning. It's about Joan of Arc. It's known as the most beautiful and lavish children's book published in the 1890s. It came out in 1896, and it is dedicated to Nicholas II, Emperor of all the Russians. Let me just carefully open it up, and you will see. Right there, hand inscribed by the author, who was good friends with the Romanovs. In fact, he painted pictures of them. So this had a very special meaning for the author. And if we go to the book itself, it's about the life of Joan of Arc. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And these pictures are hand touched up by the author. That kind of rounds out our unique books. Now's the time to like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us what type of videos you would like in the future. But first, tell me which of these books was your favorite. Was it the Joan of Arc book, the Alexander Hamilton book, Houdini's oldest book of magic, or Pablo Escobar, the Grimoire, the Lesser Key of Solomon handwritten spooky book, or Grey's Anatomy, signed by Florence Nightingale? Tell me in the comments.